So in our last post, we disassembled most of Victoria. She was down to her centerline timbers and her planking that was down. In this episode, we're gonna finish taking her apart, which is very bittersweet for us, but we're planning on reusing as much of her timber and as much of everything else on her as possible.
That's supposed to be bolted on there.
This is good. So we are continuing with Victoria's disassembly here. Supposedly spring is here, but it does not feel like it. It's pretty cold today. Hopefully tomorrow is supposed to be a lot warmer. But anyways, right now we're gonna try to get all this cleaned up before our open house on May 4th. So remember that, put that on your calendar. I'm gonna try to get all of this planking free so that we can save it. So that means I'm gonna have to pull all of the rows off of these rivet heads here. And Steve just ran to Tractor Supply. He's gonna get some nippers so we can nip those clean, and that way we can pass them back through the planks without damaging them. So let's get to that. While Steve was out at the store, I got to work on the first garboard planks. First, we had to chip away and vacuum what we believe to be Jeffrey's marine glue. This was used to fill up the space between the garboard and the keel. With the fasteners being difficult to remove from the outside, it seemed the best course of action was to remove the caulking and then pry on the board until it got loose and then finally was free.
Well, we're pulling out the floor timbers here, and I found the issue with Victoria. That right there is your problem. So that is what's left of a ballast keel bolt and nut. You can actually see what's left of the bolt in the center. And there's the washer. And so far, most of, if not all of her ballast keel bolts have just broken off like this. That used to be like a 5/8 inch iron bolt. That's all that's left. So I think the only thing holding the ballast keel on is the friction of these non-existent rusty bolts and maybe the paint. I'm really interested to jack the keel up here in a bit and find out. But holy smokes, these iron fastenings through the backbone are just gone. I would have loved to have seen her sailed hard. I bet she would have just splintered right apart.
Oh God, I think she wouldn't have lasted very long.
In the end, getting the rivet heads and the rows loose so that Steve could come through and nip them didn't really work. We then finally figured out that if we cut the frames with a skill saw and removed everything from the planking on sawhorses, it was much easier.
God, Steve, watch out. Go ahead.
That is the stem. That weird thing right here, that is a rotten keel bolt. Well, just bolt. Look at that. Oh my God. That's crazy. She looks like she's got tusks. Poor Vicky.
we got this side cleaned up and got the garboard off, and I was pulling out the ends of the frames, and the 4-foot just about came with it. So I think that's supposed to be bolted on there.
This is good. It's good enough.
You got that side?
That's a nice death spike right there.
But look at that's a steel bolt.
Oh my god. Yeah, let's walk it out. I don't think we're saving any of this.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Like I said, everything that was rotten, they just like pasted things in. All right, for everybody that's watching, epoxy is not to fix rot.
What do you mean? They make penetrating epoxy that they advertise explicitly for fixing rot. It's supposed to penetrate it and seal it, and never let anything near it.
Yeah, look at all that stuff.
Goes. All right, so Victoria is just about taken apart, as you can see, and our next step is to take off the engine. And we want to see if we can reuse it. We're not 100% sure if we will. Even if we don't, restoring it and maybe using it to sell it or donate it to somebody else would be a good thing. So we got to figure out how to get it off of here safely. And as with everything in our project, every time there's something that needs to be done, we need to figure out a solution. So we're going to build a sort of jack that goes on the back of the tractor to lift this up and pull it away.
And then we move the hitch.
Sweet.
Should be about that.
I'm interested to see if we can get anything out of these garboards. They're supposed to be teak. I just turned the tractor on and the hydraulics kicked on and now it's off. Alright, can you guys get the rest of that out of there? Or you Go ahead, yeah, can both of you get up there, one on either side? Stay up there.
When we open this up.
Yeah, we took off one of the nuts, just trying to see how bad they were. I think these ones have been replaced because the earlier bolts, there's nothing left but dirt basically. But So this look like this is all corroded on the outside, and we put a big pipe wrench on it, thinking that maybe we were just gonna twist them and break the steel off, but instead the nut came off, and I can't, they must have greased them or something in there. I can't believe how clean that is. And then we hit it a couple times and it's starting to pop out the bottom. So I think we can drive it out, and hopefully this one will do the same thing, as well as this set and this set and that set. And then the ones underneath the engine bed seem like they're the ones in the stem that are just totally gone. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and maybe we'll be able to pop the wood keel off.
Cool.
But we'll see.
So that's that. Vicky is officially taken apart, which is kind of sad. It's the first boat we've ever owned, and we didn't even sail her. But as much as it's bitter, it is sweet as well. We do want to reuse as much of her timbers as much as possible. So the bow here, most of it is kind of rotten, so like down where the forefoot wasn't very nice. But up here, there's still a lot of really good timber. And then we've got a lot of all these that are still pretty good. The keel itself supposedly is teak, so we're gonna whittle that down and see if there's anything we can salvage out of that. And the hope is to be able to build the dinghy entirely out of wood from Victoria. So try to get her centerline timbers out of these and the keel, and then we saved all of her planking, which will become the dinghy's planking.
Now that we've finished taking Victoria all apart and our PPE has arrived from Lincoln Electric, thank you very much, we can now get to work on the bronze floors. So we're just going to start in the stem and work towards the stern and do them in batches of like 6 or 8 so that we don't have to haul the welder back and forth a bunch. So right up here are going to be the 6 floors in the stem, and we're going to get those cut out first and then weld it up and just kind of do it in batch production style. So Atkin had drawn the boat with wooden floors, and when we initially did all the bolt layout, we planned on having wooden floors. So we cut a bunch of the bolts nice and short so that they wouldn't be sticking up in the way of the wooden floors. And now those same bolts would be really, really great for attaching the bronze floors down. So there's a couple bolts that we're going to have to maybe remove and remake so that we can use them to tie the bronze floors in. And each of these floors is going to be a little bit different because the width of the stem changes, as does the shape and what is being attached to them. So we've got the Samson post to consider, we've got the anchor locker, and a few other things. So as we go forward designing and laying these out, we need to really keep referring to the plans and thinking about how they fit into the big picture so that we don't end up hosing ourselves down the road. With boat building, you're just constantly trying to think 20 moves ahead. So this is one of those aforementioned bolts that we put in, and originally they were pretty long, and we didn't want that in the way in the boat and be tripping on it and be in the way of the floor timbers. So we nipped them off, and then we decided to do bronze floors, and now I'm regretting that decision. So for now, we're just going to take the nut off, and back this out of the way so that we have a flat timber to work on. And I think this one we're going to have to take out and make a little bit longer bolt and replace it. And a couple of the other ones, I think we have enough play in it that if we back the nut off on the bottom a little bit and push them up, that we'll be able to catch the plate. But if we have to, we'll replace those as well. It'll just be so nice to have this floor bolted all the way through the center line with that bolt and not put any more holes in the timber than we need to. So first step here will just be getting it flush. So that is good enough to do what we need to do.
With the keel bolt out of the way, we were able to make templates for the base plates. These would then be put in place before we could take the measurements and cut out the wings. Like we said before, the PPE from Lincoln Electric arrived and we put it to use right away. Cutting the chamfer with the bandsaw obviously didn't work the first time, but using the grinder and the sander setup made quick work of that. Now, with all the wings cut, it was time to get them bent to the frames. So, after getting all the templates cut out for the curves of the frames, we got back to it with our customized two-man press.
Now we should be able to just production bend, and I think once we're happy with it, we can just clamp it right to the boat. Get the pattern close and then bring it over and get it finished and throw a clamp on it and be like, that one's done, that one's done.
For the vertical to go in.
And just go all the way down. And then once they're all clamped and finished, we can like shimmy them with the base plates, drill the base plates, whatever we want to do with those, and patterns for the verts. So that should match like that.
Yep.
More. Okay. I'm having a hard time getting it lined up to getting it to pull that corner down. Do you want to try doing this? I think you're better at this than I am.
I can try. Try that. Just a little bit.
Good. Right there. Good.
Although the press we built did a great job, it took much more time than we thought. With all the trips back and forth checking the fit, it ate up most of the day. We'll take a look at solving this problem in the next video as we finish up the forward floors, work our way down cutting and bending and welding as we go.